I didn't scream. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just stared. I just watched as my wife stepped off the rooftop in front of me. She plummeted to the earth with a sickening crunch. I was still unable to move from shock as I heard the screams of the poor pedestrians that saw a woman die. At the time, I had no idea why she did it. Whenever anyone asked, I lied. I said it was an accident. I said she tripped. I said I called her name, Mary. I tried to save her. They all believed me. No one even questioned if it was the truth. No one wanted to consider that someone they loved would take their own life. After Mary took her life, mine was empty. I had no friends. Anyone I did know had little sympathy for me. Even my first wife and kids didn't do so much as get a condolence card. My life was dull and grey. That was when the first letter arrived. Dear John. I opened it, walking to my house from the mailbox. I almost collapsed. It was Mary. I would recognize her handwriting anywhere. I ran inside my house and began to read the letter from my dead wife. Dear John, I loved you so much. I truly did. But I loved you so much it began to hurt. It began to hurt because it was clear that you didn't love me. What? I was so confused I couldn't hold it in. What did she mean? If she loved me as much as she said she did, then she wouldn't have taken everything from me. So I read on. It was the little things. The way your smile would slightly drop when I walked into the room. The way you didn't hug me or hold my hand. The way you got angry at every little thing. It swiftly progressed. You never smiled. You refused to be affectionate. You were angry all of the time. What a sick joke. I thought that maybe someone that hated me might be playing a sick prank. Maybe one of my neighbors found out and decided to have some disgusting fun. I didn't bother reading the rest. I tore it up and threw it in the fireplace later that night. A few more days passed and I forgot about that sick joke of a letter. I went to work and returned. The house was too quiet nowadays, so I usually drank while I listened to the radio. One night, however, there was a knock on the door. I left my seat and opened it. Nothing. Nothing, I thought at first, but then I looked down and saw another letter. Grabbing it, I returned to my seat. I tore it open and started reading. Dear John, you burned my last letter. Why would you do such a heartless act? Well, it's just in your nature. Huh? How would they know I burned it? I didn't tell anyone about the letter, nevertheless about burning it. It's rather funny in a way, given that everything you touch gets destroyed in one way or another. I was speechless. I skimmed through the rest of the letter. It was just full of insults and lies. I downed the rest of my drink, then once again threw the letter into the fire. The moment the paper touched the flame, a loud noise startled me. Bang! It came from above me, so without thinking I ran upstairs. My bedroom door was open. It swung widely due to the wide open window in my room. I entered my room, but as I was getting close to the window I noticed it. Large red text on the wall. Regrets again? My head hurt and I began to feel sick. What a horrible practical joke to play and to break into my house and vandalize it. That was too far. I decided that I should get the police involved. I reached down into my pocket. Crap, I thought as I felt nothing. I walked back down the stairs and into the living room. The radio was playing the news as I searched for my phone. I looked around the room until something caught my attention. A local woman, Mary Cooper, died in an accident last week. The local 27-year-old school teacher tragically fell to her death. She was married to a disgraced businessman, John Cooper, most well known for... The usually calm and professional voice became hysterical and distorted.
You killed her, didn't you, John?
No, I shouted reflexively.
She loved you and you blamed her. You're a monster.
I picked up the radio and threw it across the room, cutting off the horrible voice from spewing any more lies. I did not kill my wife. I loved her. I left my entire life for her. Why did I do that? Maybe I am a monster. No! I shouted into the empty room. I sank to the floor, my head in my hands. Without the radio, the silence was just sharp and painful. It filled the house, it filled my head. Just silence. Until it was broken. A knock on the front door again. That fucker is going to pay this time, I thought as I got to my feet and yanked the door open aggressively. Nothing. No one was there. No one was in the street. There was no one anywhere. Then, hesitantly, cautiously, I looked down. When I looked down, I saw the city beneath me. I turned around and realized where I was. The rooftop. Mary stood, gazing out at the city. I stood silently, but then I didn't. I don't love you, I said plainly. She looked at me and said, I know. I hate you. She didn't say anything. I want you out of my life. I want my old life back, my actual wife, my kids. She turned away from me and back towards the city. Do it. If you love me, then die for me. As soon as the words left my mouth, I watched as Mary stepped into the nothingness. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just stared. I just watched. I stood for a moment, back outside my house again. Then I went inside. I killed her. I killed Mary. And I am sorry. I just wanted my old life back before I even knew she existed. She didn't deserve it, but I do. There's only two choices ahead of me. Live with the guilt, or don't. I've made up my mind already. For as long as I can remember, I have been able to see people's auras, though I don't know if I consider myself to be a psychic. Auras come in all sorts of colors and hues, and when people are really excited or emotional, their auras get bigger and brighter. I can see mine too. It's a nice lime green. There are other people who can see auras as well. I'm not sure what an aura is exactly. I don't think anyone really knows, but most people think it's a visualization of our soul. I have never really cared much, since it doesn't seem to affect my life. I mostly see it as a fun little quirk, not some sort of power. I work in an office, and last month they hired a new guy. The weird thing is, this new guy didn't have an aura. Now, I have never ever seen a person without one, and sometimes a person's aura can be faint, but Joe straight up did not have one at all. I couldn't exactly ask him why, as I figured he probably didn't believe in psychic shit and would think I'm crazy. Well, I tried to let it go and not think about it, but I couldn't stop obsessing over it. I caught myself staring at him all the time, trying to make out even a hint of something. There had to be a reason, right? I found myself focusing on him. I would always eat lunch in a spot where I could look at him. Now, here's where it started to get even weirder. Joe never bought lunch. During our break, he would sit in the corner of the room on his phone. He never ate or drank anything, not even water. One day, I couldn't stand it, and I sat by him and offered him half my sandwich. Joe declined and told me he just wasn't hungry. Well, that didn't make sense to me. I mean, he skipped lunch every single day. Surely he had to be hungry sometimes, right? One day, Joe mentioned the football game coming up that Sunday and asked if I wanted to come over and watch it. I thought this was weird. I barely knew this guy and he was already inviting me over to his place like we were friends. I tried to think of an excuse at first, but then I figured that maybe if I went to his place, I could discover a reason as to why he was so weird. So Sunday came and I went over to Joe's. His house was small but nice, and he came out onto the front porch to greet me. He invited me in and he seemed very happy. Usually he didn't talk to anyone at work, but as soon as I went into the house he started yapping. He asked me how I liked work, what my favorite sports team was, if I had a significant other, and overall he was being very nice. I shivered a bit, as his house was freezing. He turned on the football game and we watched and made small talk. I can't remember much of what he said, but it was all boring, pointless stuff anyway, like what he thought of work and what books he liked to read. The whole time I was trying not to stare at him, at his weird, auraless body. I noticed that Joe was sweating despite the temperature of the house. About an hour into the game, Joe excused himself to the bathroom. Well, I sat there for about 15 minutes in his cold-ass living room, and he didn't come back. I heard a weird noise coming from the hallway, so I got up to check it out. I found the bathroom and could hear a retching sound coming from inside, like someone was throwing up. I knocked and asked if everything was alright, and Joe coughed a bit and said he was fine. I figured he must have gotten some food poisoning or something. I hurried back into the living room and I wasn't sure what to do. I was getting uncomfortable. Joe was really friendly, but there was something off about him. Maybe I am more psychic than I previously thought. Maybe I had some sort of strange intuition, because I felt like something wasn't right. After another 10 minutes, my throat started to get dry. I went into the kitchen, grabbed a cup from the cabinet, and put it under the water dispenser in the fridge. Well, nothing came out. I tried getting eyes, and still nothing, so I opened the fridge. There was nothing in it, and it wasn't even on, just a dark fridge of empty shelves. Curious and weirded out, I looked in the other cabinets in the pantry. All empty. I heard the bathroom door open so quickly I went back to the couch. Joe was more sweaty than before, and his face was red, so I figured he had to have been vomiting. I asked him if he was alright, but he said it was nothing. We continued to watch the football game until it ended. I was about to get my ass out of there, but Joe said he wanted to show me something. I told him I really had to be going, but he insisted. So I followed Joe down into the basement, which was way colder than upstairs. It was really dark. Only a single light bulb hung from the ceiling. People's auras shine in the dark, so it was weird seeing him shrouded in darkness. My own aura was shining very bright because I was so nervous. We reached the bottom of the stairs, and I saw that on the concrete floor there was a circle drawn in what looked like white chalk. Around the perimeter of the circle were symbols and words in a language I didn't recognize. I looked around the room and noticed that there were unlit candles all lined up against the walls, dozens and dozens of them. I asked Joe, "The hell is all this?" He just laughed and told me that I would see. I really wanted to get the fuck out of there. I felt like I was going to get murdered. "Go stand in the center," Joe told me and laughed, pointing to the circle. I went silent for a moment before laughing nervously. I said, "You're fucking with me, right?" And Joe shook his head. He told me again to stand in the circle and said that it would help him out. My aura was pulsing at this point. I was afraid to say no. What if he had a weapon hidden? What if he planned to hurt me if I didn't do as he said? So I walked over to the circle and stood in the center. I know I'm stupid, and what I did was really, really fucking dumb. My memory isn't the best, but I remember everything Joe said after that. "You're promised money and power, but at a price." I didn't know what it would be like. I can't eat. I'm always sick. I'm always burning up. "You're promised, woman, but I can't feel. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I'm sorry." I was going to ask what the fuck Joe was talking about, but my mouth wouldn't open. I tried walking forward, but my legs wouldn't move. I tried raising my arms, but they too were stuck in place. It was like I was frozen like a statue. The room brightened up as all the candles in the room lit themselves. Joe coughed, and I swear I saw blood on his hand. He said something quietly, words I didn't understand, before turning away from me. He kept saying he was sorry over and over as he walked back upstairs. I think I had tears in my eyes at that point. The following hour seemed like a dream. The chalk symbols on the floor seemed to move around and change shape. I heard a loud droning, a completely alien sound. You know how, even if you can't see, you can tell if there's someone behind you. I felt that, felt a presence standing behind me. I felt hands on my shoulders, sharp claws digging into my skin. My head pounded and the room was spinning. I felt like I was going to be sick. I felt an immense pressure, like I was a mile underwater. I tried to scream, tried to yell for help, tried to beg for my life, but my mouth remained shut. I closed my eyes, waiting for the worst, and then opened them again when the light bulb exploded. The candles all went out, and I was in the dark. Suddenly, I could move again. I ran upstairs, and Joe was nowhere to be seen. I didn't wait around for him though, and got the fuck out of there. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw when I went to work next day. Joe had an aura, bright and green. He seemed much happier. He mingled with our co-workers and bought food during lunch. He avoided me though, and I avoided him. Ever since the incident at his house, I have felt like total shit. I feel parched. The cool autumn air feels like 110 degrees, and I'm starving because everything I eat tastes like dirt. I have a doctor's appointment scheduled, but I can't bring up the worst of my concerns. My aura is gone. You rush through the crowd to put some distance between us, but nothing shall dissuade me from delivering my imperative message. You've been silly, coy, playful, even in your avoidance and deterrence. I've even lost sight of you a couple of times, but eventually I find you again. Sometimes it was on the same day, sometimes the same year. While you may need rest, your peace, I never rest. Always persistent, always insistent, My message will be delivered. Now you've reached the end of your stamina, unaware of how close I am to you. It's been 3 days since you last rested. Now coffee and energy drinks no longer do the trick. You find yourself nodding off while standing. You think you've gained a few days between us. Your desperate need for sleep hides from you how wrong you are. You duck into a bustling motel, your eyes failing to find me before you approach the desk. I'm a considerate person, though my message is of the utmost importance and you must hear it before it's too late. I wait in the lobby and you allow the full night's rest. Though my patience begins to run thin as you sleep well past lunchtime, I glance between the time on the clock and where you'd land once you depart your room to run again. I briefly consider going to your room, knocking on the door, preventing your escape from hearing my message. I dismiss that thought as I watch a younger copy your mother singing in the most offensive way that humors me as only children tend to do. I indulge in the entertainment while I wait, something to abate my impatient desire to interrupt your sleep. Though the temptation has been growing stronger with each missed opportunity, I push it down as I always do. Regret heats my cheeks minutes later as I turn back just in time to see you push out of the front door. A missed opportunity. Were you watching me too? Waiting until I was distracted to make your escape? You'll not succeed again. I follow you through the crowds. Eventually, you stop glancing over your shoulder at me. Can't you just stop? Just a moment at a time is all I take. Then you'd be rid of me until the need rose again, that is. When you sit down at the cafe for some donuts and a mocha cappuccino, I make my move. Your guard has clearly dropped as you browse your phone, forgetting to look up as the door opens. I rush inside and to your table and sit across from you. You glance up and try to leave, but I've already grabbed your arm. I hold it firmly to the table as I look into your eyes with the most urgency I could convey. I'm so sorry. I'm so terribly sorry. I whisper as you try to pull away. I tighten my grip. You must hear this. You can't keep running. I've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. Being a kid, your mind tends to play tricks on you. Your imagination can run wild. Sometimes you believe you heard strange noises or even seen something uncanny, something that does not belong in this world. That being said, I have been reminded recently of a really odd event that plagued my childhood. A clicking sound coming from my closet. It started when I was around 7. I have no siblings and lived alone with my mother, who was extremely strict when it came to bedtime. She tucked me in 9:30 every night, making sure every light was switched off. I would receive a kiss on the forehead for following her routine and be left alone to sleep. This was nothing new. I'd been doing this over and over ever since I grew conscious, but this night was different. My room was quite small, my bed taking up more than a quarter of my room and the TV that sat in front of me. The window that was never shut hovered to the right of me, and the closet stood straight to the left next to my door. It was an ordinary closet, nothing strange, spooky or unusual about it. Plain oak wood colored it, and my clothes and shoes were packed tightly in. Boxes of toys filled the roof of the closet, making it extremely claustrophobic. Even when playing hide and seek with my friends, no one was dumb enough to chance hiding in there and not being found. That's why at the age of 7, I found it rather frightening to hear such a noise. The room was pitch black, and shutting my eyes hardly made a difference. No sound ever entered as I slept in silence. Then I heard it. Click. It wasn't loud. In fact, if my bedroom hadn't been soundless, I would have ignored it. Through my innocence, I believed one of my action figures perhaps fell. I tried to go back to sleep. Not long after the non-comforting click seemed to have disappeared, I began slowly falling back into slumber, until I heard it again. Click, click. This time it doubled in a short pause, becoming louder as if it was closer. Was it the action figures clattering? A horse's noisy joints clogging its way down a field, the snapping of a twig in the woods, someone rolling and popping their tongue, cracking their knuckles outside my window, or was it something more sinister? All I knew is that I did not want to find out. I lay in prayer underneath the suffocating but protective company of my guild as I begged the noise would stop. And it did. I spent the whole night and early hours of the morning awake, petrified of hearing the click, but it had gone. That morning, I did not dare to take a peek inside. I explained to my mother what had happened over breakfast. She brushed it off, explaining, "It could have been a million things making that noise." For weeks, my nightly privacy remained hushed, only hearing the weather outside my window. The clicking had become a lost memory, carrying on with my simple, sweet little life. It had been completely forgotten. In the darkness again, the nights repeated. A kiss goodnight, then my eyes shut. It hit me like a punch in the stomach. The sound lit up my room. My heart began to sink up into my throat. It made my breath run heavy as I struggled for air. I took a glance. The closet was peered open. A little gap, only big enough to slide a piece of paper through, appeared. I hadn't left it open, did I? The retreat back into my covers was my only form of escape. That night was misery. I stayed up as to not alert the entity in my closet that I was convinced was real. I didn't dream of confronting the click. I stayed up all night and morning again, holding my small bladder that burst not long after. Frozen in fear, I hid until my mother came in to wake me up. I pointed to the closet, which she opened. Nothing was there. For peeing in my bed and staying up all night, my TV license was confiscated. She repeated herself, telling me, "Nothing is in there. You are just hearing things. It's just your mind playing tricks on you." The clicking did not stop. They became more frequent. Every night I heard it. Sometimes once, sometimes 10 times. Sometimes it was loud. Sometimes it was quiet. This went on for months. I became that used to it that I stopped hiding. I just listened. Eventually, the living nightmare that had become a reality was weighing me down. I remember my mother taking me to the hospital. They said I had extremely high stress and lack of sleep for a little boy. Sleeping pills were prescribed to me. My routine had changed from a kiss on the forehead to swallowing bullet-sized balls. At least the clicking stopped. I don't know what it was, but an urge came over me. I wanted to know if what I heard was just a noise. I placed the pill at the back of my mouth, taking a sip of water and waiting for my mother to leave. I spat it out. Patiently, I rested my head against the pillow, almost hoping to hear it. Some time had passed and there was nothing. In a way, I was disappointed. I began questioning myself. I guess my mind really was playing tricks on me. At that moment, I heard it. Not a click, but a squeak. The squeak of my closet door being pushed open. Being completely honest, I was terrified to even look, never mind getting up and investigating who or whatever had just opened my closet. But somehow, in some dumb defiance, bravery and courage rushed my souls. The darkness surrounded me, my closet resembling a black hole. Nothing but a void of emptiness. By the time my feet touched the carpeted floor, my body was uncontrollably shaking. Slowly and carefully, I tiptoed across the soft ground. I made it. The door, which was already half open, began squeaking again. The noise was agonizing, like chalk being scraped across a blackboard. This sent me stumbling back, nearly falling in fright. The unknown had terrorized me for too long. I need to know what was clicking in my closet. I entered. Click. A flash struck my face, leaving me blinded. My vision remained blurred as I heard heavy footsteps pass me by. After my eyes began to clear, I switched on the lights. The rustling must have triggered my mother to come rushing in holding a metallic bat. She grabbed me in an embracing hug. During this, I could see my window completely wide open. Behind me, my mother noticed something else. Most of my clothes, shoes, and toys were missing. She reached in the closet. It was a photo. "I told you there was a clicking in my closet." You are probably wondering why I decided to share this disturbing part of my childhood with some random people online. Well, it happened around 30 years ago, and I have moved on. I have a wife and a little boy. A little boy who brought this memory back to me. He's been telling me he hears whispers at night.